Welcome back to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by a full team today of Mark O'Haire, Adrian Clarke and Miguel Delaney. And we've got 4 cracking Champions League ties to get our teeth stuck into for Tuesday and Wednesday this week. But it would be remiss of us not to briefly touch on what was an eventful Premier League weekend. And Mark, I'll start with you on Liverpool versus Manchester United. And I think even the most hardened of Liverpool fan just wasn't expecting that. That second half, 6-0 in the second half. It just, I can't put it into words. Try your best now in maybe 90 seconds or so.
I don't even know where to begin because it was a kind of nip and tuck game for the first 35, 40 minutes at least. United were very competitive and in the game, but I guess what do you do now? Do you kind of write off everything we've seen between September and March because of that result and that collapse? I don't think you can, but it's hard not to be concerned about the manner of the defeat and that collapse, particularly a bunch of senior players losing their heads and downing tools in a manner which is just kind of unforgivable, really, considering the progress United had made. We were both, Adrian and I, quite positive about United's opportunity to go there and get something out of the match. But I guess hindsight, whether that's the right way of going at things, but it has been a culmination of a really, really hectic schedule for Man United. Perhaps in that second half, things caught up with them a little bit. It was their 20th game since Christmas in a 68-game schedule. That's a match every 3.4 days, basically. And, got a cup final in there, 2 semi-finals as well. It's hard, but still completely unforgivable. I'm not even sure where to analyse it in 30 seconds. But, one for the history books, obviously. So, I think even watching it just didn't feel right. It felt weird watching it, but kind of hilarious at the same point too.
Yeah, hilarious is the word. I was laughing by the last couple of goals because I was just like, this is ridiculous. Miguel, I know you're at the game, so I want to put a slightly different slant. We've obviously heard a lot about the blame against the players, but did Ten Hag get a couple of things big time wrong? The first, maybe not having Rashford taking on Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I thought some of the substitutions were strange at 3-0. And even 5-0, they took off Casemiro and Martinez. I just thought they were strange, and they definitely compounded a second half, which got away from United.
Yeah, and even the positioning of, this is related, I suppose, where Rashford was, but the positioning of Bruno at the start of the game. And it just felt like it all kind of fed into, it created gaps in the United team that were exacerbated by a number of issues. Really, it was almost a little bit of a perfect storm in the sense, I think this is a squad on one side, United, who've overexerted themselves the past few weeks, especially as Ten Hag does like a relatively tight 11, in contrast to Graham Potter, who we'll talk about. Whereas Liverpool have obviously been underperforming for pretty much the whole season. And as Klopp made a specific reference to after the game, the last week has pretty much been the first time where they've had full complements in training up to the level he'd want. And I think all this came together. Now, all this coming together might lead to a 4-0 or 5-0. To go to 7, and it wasn't just 7. It was also that second half, anytime Liverpool attacked, it looked like they were going to score. And it could have been, there was that missed header from Konate. Robertson had a big chance. It could have been 10. Yeah. But
trying to stifle the laughter. Yeah, I like it.
that speaks to one other thing where, while United are clearly, this isn't the wheels coming off, or at least it shouldn't be. They've clearly made huge progress. It maybe speaks to one thing, that Liverpool's highest level, which they've only very rarely hit this season, is still higher than Manchester United's, maybe by a little bit. And that sometimes happens with teams who are either in decline or maybe more relevantly now in transition, where there's that muscle memory that kicks in big games. We already saw with Liverpool against Manchester City. And I think all of those things came together here.
Yeah, Adrian, we spoke to each other post the Arsenal game on Saturday about how fearful we were of Manchester United and how well they've been doing this season. You got to be disappointed at some of those leaders and like the Casemiros, the Varane, in a big game like that, to just be part of a team that loses 7-0. Surely there's a bit of experience, the old school Rio Ferdinand used to always say, we're going to lose the game here 3-0, guys, and that's the end of it. Let's shut up shop.
It's a bad sign. I think the body language of the players was poor in the second half, and of senior players as well. So that's a problem potentially moving forward. I think that how you respond to setbacks is often what makes a team. And last season, you saw Arsenal struggled badly when they went behind. Things would fall like a pack of cards. They've sort of learned from that, and now we're seeing the opposite. Maybe at the stage United are, they're not quite mature enough as a team to handle setbacks and disappointments, and it might be something that we don't see until next season them improve on. But yeah, that would be a concern if I was a United fan. But they're still a very, very good team, and fully expect them to end up comfortably third.
Yeah, and look, the Sky talk was fascinating. We say what you want about the fan way the Sky have gone about it. It was great telly that hour and a half with Souness, Keane,
Well, just
Carragher, and
watching
Neville.
or listening to Carragher and Neville was fun in itself, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quite fun. Roy Keane at one point didn't say anything for about 35 minutes of live airtime. It was just brilliant. He just let everyone else dig themselves into holes. But look, it was a fascinating game. It's why we love football, I guess, the shock nature of it. And we will be previewing the Premier League on Thursday. Let's concentrate on the Champions League now. We've got 4 big ties coming up. Chelsea versus Dortmund, Benfica versus Club Brugge, Bayern versus PSG, and Spurs versus AC Milan. If you are watching on YouTube, we would really appreciate you just hitting that like button and leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for free. And if you're listening to the podcast, we would would appreciate a preferential review either on Apple or Spotify. Let's get straight into the games and start with Chelsea versus Dortmund and take a look at the betting that we have at matchbook.com. You can currently back Chelsea at 1.92, Dortmund available at 4.4, and the draw is 3.9. That's the 90-minute match odds. Both teams to score is favoured at 1.8 with no available at 2.1. The Asian handicap line sees Dortmund get half a goal head start at 2.06, and the total is 2.5. Adrian, set this game up for us. Graham Potter's Chelsea, it was a big win for them to get. I actually spoke to a Chelsea fan coming back on the plane on Saturday evening, and it was just a poor enough performance in his words, but they got the job done. And what was your take on them?
Well, they needed it, didn't they? Yeah, they really just needed to get 3 points on the board just to get sort of over the mini crisis. Potter needed it more than most. I don't think it was a convincing performance. Like, they were okay in patches, and then they switched off, and they allowed Leeds to come at them, and it was not comfortable. And let's face it, Dortmund are going to present a stiffer challenge, you would have thought, than Leeds United. Dortmund have won 10 on the spin. Now, I know that we spoke about this before in the last pod, that they've not always been convincing during that particular run, but 10 wins on the spin is impressive. At the weekend, prime example, beat Leipzig, but they were outshot 17-8 in the game at home, but they got the job done. So they're a decent team, tough nut to crack, and obviously they've got something to hold on to, the Germans coming to Stamford Bridge. I can't get on side with Chelsea, that is for sure. Even though they played well in that game and created loads of chances, how can you get on side with a team that's scored more than one goal once in the last 16 matches? If Dortmund score a goal here at Stamford Bridge, the chances are Chelsea aren't going to get 2 based on recent history, which means they're out. I'm drawn here towards Dortmund on the handicap. I think they're quite long odds for the game, and to get Dortmund plus 0.5, I think is appealing, because a draw is good enough for them. I think it's just over evens, isn't it? Dortmund plus a half a goal. I think that's good. When you think that both teams to score, you just mentioned it there, is 1.8. So that's the favourite. So people are expecting both teams to score. Given what I've just said about Chelsea not getting more than one goal, hardly ever, then it gives Dortmund a wonderful chance, in my opinion, to at least get a draw and to progress. So that's my pick, but it's a tough game to analyse. I don't think it's going to be one full of goals. That's my honest opinion. I think under 3 for sure.
Yeah, Adrian touched on the unders angle, Miguel, which is what you like. A little bit on Graham Potter's Chelsea. This is a sort of tie that can turn a managerial saga or managerial appointment up. If Graham Potter does manage to get a win here, he's got 2 more games, knockout games in Champions League for fans to look forward to. It's such a pivotal game for him for the rest of the season.
Well, that's it, yeah. And I mean, like, it's something kind of writing for tomorrow. But one of the whole policies of this Chelsea, one of their grand plans, is there like inequalities in football that can be exploited. But I think they all realised this weekend that there are some truths in football that are basically immutable, and one of them is the powerful effect of a single win, in which basically for Chelsea it's been easier to prepare for this game just because they're going into it without the same pressure. There's the change of context. Within that, I think there's 2 ways to read this game. And it's why I was somewhat tentative even putting under 2.5. But unfortunately, I've got almost two conflicting positions here. One is that this conforms to everything we've seen from Chelsea lately, as Adrian's alluded to there, which is this is going to be a tight game, controlled by Chelsea in terms of possession, maybe one goal in it, potentially goes to extra time, potentially a 1-0 Dortmund win. And that's why I've gone for under 2.5. Because I think that just given all the evidence, that probably feeds into that. But the one thing playing on my mind is the way the first leg went. And for a first leg to go like that, it was so open, a chaotic match. And given this is a knockout, that is Chelsea's big chance for the season, because they can still win the Champions League. Amazing it is to think it. Might we see similar, and this becomes one of those free-for-alls? It's something to consider. And from that perspective, I can just looking on the sheet, I can see why Mark has done the way he has.
Yeah, which is exactly what I was going to lead into, Mark. I think Miguel and Adrian have set up well why you are a no bet here. And maybe a quick word on Dortmund. Are they getting the credit for their league form this season? Because I know Bayern have sort of come back to the pack a bit with just inconsistent results, but they are joint top of the Bundesliga right now, which if you said that at the start of the season, you'd find that hard to believe.
Yes, but I can pick holes in their form as well, which says something. You know, they've won 10 games across all competitions since the winter break, 8 successive in the Bundesliga, which is equaling a club record. Clearly, results have been exemplary, and the players are starting to believe their own hype now. If you see what they're saying after matches, it's almost like an Arsenal feel about the Dortmund playing squad at the minute. They really believe they can challenge Bayern this year. But Friday night, the Leipzig game was a really thrilling affair. And look, game state does play a little bit of a part here, but it kind of followed a particular theme that I've seen in Dortmund matches, particularly when the standard of opposition is increased. Dortmund were fortunate to win that match. As Adrian says, they conceded 17 shots, 3 big chances, well over 2 expected goals. And in the 3 games they've played class opposition, Chelsea being 1, Leverkusen and Leipzig, they've conceded at least 2 expected goals in all of those games. So the narrative is very different because the likes of Süle and Schotterbeck and standing goalkeeper Meyer stood strong and were able to sort of defend the lead and get Dortmund to 3 points. But had an equaliser come, which could well have done, the narrative would have been a bit different. And I do still have my reservations about Dortmund as a robust team going away from home, particularly on a big European night. Defensively, I think they still can get got at. I know they put on a decent show against Man City earlier in the campaign, but I still think there's questions to be answered around Dortmund. And I still can't think of kind of get the first leg out of my head either, because I had Chelsea plus a quarter and I felt really hard done by to lose out in that match. They had 21 shots, 2.2 expected goals, 3 big chances, hit the woodwork, had 8 shots on target, which is the most they've ever had in an away knockout tie in the Champions League, and lost 1-0. So they were the dominant force in that first leg in Germany. So, you know, they can and they have the ability to turn up here and get a result. But I did my sort of notes on Monday morning, and Chelsea were trading close to even money. They're now into 1.92, just gone too short. I thought they were already too short at odds on. I might have been interested in some way or form if they had been odds against. But the market does really like Chelsea, and I think that has to be respected too, despite everything we've seen, which finds it's very difficult to be pro Chelsea considering the results. But they actually went off as favourites away at Tottenham not so long ago. So the market has seen something they like, and obviously, as we've seen here, the Chelsea price is contracting again. So kind of just respecting the market here and kind of leaving the game alone, because I too would probably be pro Chelsea if the price was right, but it's not. So no bet.
Yeah, myself came into it with a little bit of a pro Dortmund angle, but you guys have sort of talked it into the Chelsea way. So I think I'm going to go no bet for this one in terms of pocket. We don't have to have a bet in every game, and I just can't make my mind up for any of the 2 selections or the no bet. So I've gone and sat on the fence on that one. We'll move on to the other game that night. It's Benfica at home to Club Brugge, and we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Benfica at 1.42 now, Club Brugge or Club Brugge at 9.0. The draw is available at 5.2. The over 2.5 goals is the total at 1.71. Under is available at 2.32. The Asian handicap line is quite big. It's Benfica getting taken on a -1.25 start at 1.91, and both teams to score. Yes, it's the slight underdog in that market at 1.99. And Mark, we'll hand it straight back to you on this one. Scotty Parker's side lost 3-0 away to a team ranked 15th or 16th, I think, in the Belgian league. So the signs aren't good here going into this second leg.
Nope. Don't want to say I told you so, but if you're going to point
You
Scott
did.
Parker, kind of going over old ground really with Club Brugge, but the decision to sack Carl Hoefkens after a small blip in form around Christmas time and appointing Scott Parker just feels all wrong really. They've won twice across all competitions since then. Their underlying metrics are projecting as a bang average mid-table team in Belgium, which is unforgivable for a side who should be dominating the division, or at least in the run to qualify for Europe. And I don't think it will surprise anyone to learn that Bruges are dominating possession, but have absolutely no penetration whatsoever with Scott Parker in charge. So, they scored twice or more in 5 of the last 14 domestic fixtures, and they kept 2 clean sheets in that sample. But, we'll take Friday night, for an example, the 3-0 defeat at Oostend, who started the weekend in the bottom 2, played 69% of the ball, lost the expected goals count convincingly, lost the shot count, lost the shots on target count, and the big chance count. And despite having 69% of the ball, they had 4 shots from inside the penalty area. 4 shots at a team in the bottom 2 in Belgium from inside the penalty area. Just unforgivable stuff. Go back to the first leg. At home in Europe, you've got a tie against Benfica. I know Benfica are very capable, but they're not Bayern Munich. They're not a Man City. You've escaped a match against one of the real big heavy hitters here. Great opportunity to show what you're capable of. They had 1 shot from inside the penalty area at home against Benfica in the first leg. They had 1 shot on target in the game as well, and that came in the first 5 minutes. Benfica had 11 shots inside the penalty area. It was quite a scrappy game, but there was one team who was very much the aggressor and one team who was just not good enough. And Benfica, I don't tend to like backing teams who have already got a 2-goal lead in a second leg tie, but the front 4 are all playing really well together at the minute, really in synchronized. Rafa Silva, Gonzalo Ramos, João Mario, and David Neres. They've got a centre half called Antonio Silva, 19-year-old. He's going to be the next best thing as well on the conveyor belt, just playing superbly well. Alongside Otamendi, the home record this season, 15 wins, 2 draws, 0 defeats. Regardless of the first leg, I think they'll be quite keen to get this tie done and dusted early doors. And then they can sort of start taking players off and start resuming their league campaign at the weekend. So I think Benfica win this game pretty comfortably, but we can add in under 4.5 goals. The price is now 1.79, so that gets a range of correct scores on side, even if Brugge were able to get a consolation, because they do have their best player back fit and available, Ferran Jutgla, the Catalan striker or forward, which is a big plus for them. But at the minute, they're just not showing any sort of ability in the final third to trouble Benfica.
Anyone else feeling a bit sorry for Scott Parker after that damning verdict from Mark? He didn't hold back there. Yeah, that was brutal. Adrian, have you any sympathy for Scott Parker? Can he coach an attack? Because that's from what I gathered from Mark, who's watched a lot of Scott Parker sides in the Championship, Premier League, and now in the Belgian League. He seems to suggest that he can't seem to coach a team to create chances.
Yeah, I mean, he is naturally cautious, but he's got a couple of promotions from the Championship. You don't get promoted if you can't score goals. But I'm more on Mark's side than not. I don't really feel like I want to defend Scott Parker, because I think that he is overly cautious. But look, I like to see our managers, English managers, going overseas and succeeding. So I want, I spoke to his assistant manager not so long ago, interviewed him. He's a lovely guy. So I hope it comes good, but it's not feeling as if it's going that way at the moment, is it? And this is a tough ask, isn't it? Benfica away. I think the only thing that can beat Benfica is probably complacency. They're solid at the back. I don't expect them to give Brugge too much, just like the first leg, where obviously they just had that 1 shot inside the box. I think only 4 shots overall. It was a pretty limp effort in front of their own fans. So can they go to Benfica and produce more? I've got my doubts. A Benfica side that domestically have kept 15 clean sheets in 23 league games this season. So they know how to shut the opposition down. And I expect them to do that against a Brugge team that I think's only won twice since the World Cup, which seems a long time ago now. Only won twice, and that's really poor for a club of their stature in Belgium. They failed to score as well, Brugge, in their last 4 Champions League matches. After a really bright start to the campaign, it's all petered out, really. So my tip is similar to Mark's. Just to get a bit more juice out of the price, and I thought this was a good price, actually. Benfica to win and BTTS no bumps it up to 2.5, doesn't it? Which I think is quite generous. So yeah, I'm more than happy to go with that, because obviously there's always the danger of Brugge scoring, but you can absolutely see a clean sheet win here, can't you, for the hosts?
Yeah, and of course Benfica will be a little bit cautious with the 2-0 lead. So if they do get a third or a first in this tie, they will perhaps sit back as well. So, Miguel, have you any positive thing to say about Scotty Parker's managerial career that has taken a battering?
Nah, he's already been kind of media defending approaches and things like that.
What do you think of his dress? What do you think of his jackets, Miguel?
Yeah, I'd be actually a bit more restrained maybe on praise there as well. Different styles, for different needs. I mean, this actually feels, I mean, we'll get into this later. This just feels one of those, you can see exactly the way this is going and why. I was actually surprised at one of the prices, which I suppose we'll come to. But, I mean, it's difficult to see Bruges scoring. It's easy to see Benfica winning. And yeah, Benfica and both teams to score no. I'm surprised that's 2.5, to be honest.
Yeah, it does feel that, again, similar to the game state as well. It's not just the two sides. So I am going to push for the bigger price here and go for Benfica and both teams to score now at 2.5. If you do want a safer option, which does seem quite solid, Benfica in the 90-minute market and combining under 4.5 goals, that's 1.76 for Mark O'Haire. And all these bets will be available at insights.matchbook.com from Monday afternoon. Let's go to what is probably the game of the weekend, Bayern at home to PSG. We'll take a look at the betting firstly we have on matchbook.com. You can back Bayern at 1.88, PSG 3.9, the draw is 4.6. Both teams to score, yes, is available at 1.5. No, it's 2.76. The Asian handicap line sees PSG get a 3/4 of a goal start, currently available at 1.88. And the goal line is high once again for this fixture, despite the first leg. And that's 3.5, shaded a good bit towards the under, in fairness. So Miguel set up this game, and PSG just keeps scoring in Ligue 1 and conceding as well. So obviously the first leg went in terms of a scoreline 1-0 was quite a surprise. So how do you see this sort of game setting up as a game state? So picture that first 20-30 minutes for us. How is this going to go? Who's going to have more of the ball? That sort of thing.
Well, I feel like it's going to be a continuation of the last 20 of the first leg, which is basically Mbappe coming on and totally changing the shape and pattern of the match, and almost really stretching Bayern quite to the limit. And that was 1-0. I think that was quite low scoring given the general balance of play, a number of chances. And I think this could be what we expected from the first leg and a really open game. And Mbappe is the great differential now. So I think this is going to be a proper back and forth with the way and also the necessity of PSG to score. I think that's going to bring out more. Nagelsmann will try and be a bit more tactical about it. But I think this is one of those games, the way Bayern set up and the way, and just the sheer force of Mbappe, which at this point, I know this is something we've said before. It's something that's kind of almost seems obvious to say, but it's so pervasive a force, which is that like Mbappe on the run, when he gets the ball into that kind of 10 meters of space, it's possibly the most, it's one of the most exhilarating sights and one of the most influential forces in football at the moment for just the way it can suddenly open up a match. I think that's going to be key here. And I can see this being a proper back and forth. I suppose we'll come into a correct score later, but it almost feels like because this can go either way, the safer one here, if it can be said to be safe when you're going this high, is over 3.5.
Yeah, currently available at 2.16. This is one of those games that first 20 minutes, if there is an early goal, you can see 3, 4, 5, 6 goals easily in this game. Mark, over to you on this one. You agree with Miguel on the goal line, but given how the first leg go, and maybe not the expected goals, but the score line, is there a danger that if that first 20-30 minutes there is no goal, that this game might be cautious at all, or is Miguel correct in what he's saying?
There's always a danger, but I think there were reasons for why that first leg played out in the way it did. And it was a huge surprise to everyone, but a huge surprise, I think, to everyone that PSG took such a passive approach. We're happy to cede possession to try and play in the counter-attack, even though Mbappe was on the bench. It's just a really puzzling tactical setup when you got Neymar and Messi up front, but no Mbappe, yet you're still trying to play on the counter-attack and chuck balls in behind to two players who need balls to feet. So very surprised, and clearly when he came on, that final half hour really put the skids up Bayern, and you felt they were more than capable of getting something out of that game because the mood shifted, the tempo increased, and the energy sort of cranked up. And they're actually quite unfortunate to get something out of the game. So, this tie is definitely not dead. And I think perhaps the best thing from a PSG perspective is Neymar's injury, because we know he's a world beater, but we know PSG are more vulnerable with that attacking three up front rather than when there's two. They're a much more rounded outfit when one of them's dropped out. There's more energy, there's more shape about them out of possession, and they can still prove just as devastating in forward areas as we saw in the Classique, because Galtier switched to a three-man defence, had Messi and Mbappe up front, and they were mesmeric in the first half, played Marseille off the park, cut them to ribbons, scored 3 goals inside the first half hour. Actually, Marseille didn't play too badly across the full game, but just those two up front were the difference makers. And look, Kimpembe's injury does disrupt things a little bit in defence. Danilo will probably come in if Galtier chooses to continue with the three-man centre-half partnership, because he got his tactics all wrong in that first half, and as well as his selection as well. Zaire Emery and Soler on the wings in a 4-4-2. Just, I don't know what he was thinking, to be honest. But PSG, we know, are very, very dangerous. I think they really are a really live outsider in this match, actually. I think they score. I think Mbappe definitely scores because Bayern's high line. No Pavard as well. He's suspended. He's been one of the most consistent defenders in 2023. So you're looking at possibly João Cancelo. We know what he's like defensively at times. Alphonso Davies as well on the other flank. So great recovery pace, but in terms of defensive organisation, they can be got at. Upamecano got turned inside out by Colin Muani in a recent Bundesliga game. Mbappe's a level above that. De Ligt has looked quite uncomfortable too. So, I think Bayern are more than good enough, obviously, to finish the job here. But I think I look at PSG's price at 3.9. It's a big, big price. I would not be touching Bayern at 1.89, that's for sure. But the safest play, as Miguel says, is goals here. So I've opted for a slightly more conservative approach. Only just over 3.25 goals. It means if there's exactly 3, we only lose half of our stake, but we're actually getting paid out to almost even money anyhow. And if there's 4 or more, we make a profit. So that would be my approach, but I do think PSG have a good chance here.
Okay, yeah, and Adrian, you're in full agreement of the overs angle, which Miguel and Mark have touched on a lot. So maybe pick up the PSG angle for us here, because they do seem quite a big prize if they can get that attack in front 3 or 4 to get clicking.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Mark said, really. Yeah, I think that for 3/4 of that match in the Parc des Princes, you thought, well, Bayern are on a different level to PSG. It was embarrassingly one-sided, so passive. And then suddenly Neymar comes on and it's like, this is more like it. And I do see him and Messi, because they're both in great form, causing this Bayern rearguard problems. I mean, the team scored 11 in their last 3 games in the Ligue 1, which is pretty impressive. Messi's got 3 of them, Mbappe's got 5. They've let in a few goals, I think 5 in that run as well. So you wouldn't be sure of them keeping a clean sheet. So the overs angle is clearly obvious. But yeah, I give PSG that chance because of the tactical setup of Nagelsmann with a high line. It will suit Mbappe big time. And I think Bayern will be a little bit frightened of them. They obviously saw off Inter and Barcelona pretty comfortably. 2-0, weren't they, in both the group games? They didn't come up against Messi and Mbappe. I mean, these are the two greatest, aren't they? And I think they're in the mood they'll definitely be in the mood to wreak havoc here and to keep their Champions League dreams alive. So I think they're going to really attack the game, PSG, and I give them a great chance. On Bayern, Sadio Mane might be back, which is interesting. I think he came off the bench at the weekend. PSG will score in the game. I'm pretty confident of that. They might get a couple, which is why I like them on the handicap. I mean, Mark hinted at it there. I mean, you can get PSG on plus 3/4 of a goal at 1.88. I think you quoted. So you got the draw and the PSG win covered. And if they get beat by a goal, you only lose, half the stake, don't you? So no, I think there's a real chance. The other thing, I don't know what the boys think about Nagelsmann. I don't think I fully trust him yet in the big games for Bayern Munich. I don't know. I don't know what it is about him. I'm just not quite sure that he won't do a Pep and falter when, in that big moment where they've, it's all there before them.
Okay, yeah, fascinating insights. Before we leave this, Mark, maybe there's one for you here. Shane in the YouTube comments is saying maybe be brave and back PSG at 24.0 in the outright market. I see on match with 22.0 currently. Is that a sort of play for you if you want to maybe like a fun interest bet to cheer on PSG just based on the prices?
Yeah, I like that actually. Yeah, it's a really attractive price. Adrian and I sort of talking up PSG's opportunity here to go and do something in Munich. So yeah, it's a big price. Absolutely would not put anyone off that. You know, it's a big price for a reason. But yeah, absolutely have a little dig.
But they've got to win by 2, haven't they? That's the issue, really.
Yeah.
You know,
well, win by 1 and get it to extra time and
it's
a new ball game.
Yeah, exactly. You could do that. Yeah, they could get through that way. It's a big ask to progress, but yeah, I think they're capable.
They have the squad for sure. Yeah, we'll lock in the over 3.25 goals at 1.98, and it is one of the guys' best bets here as well. So we'll touch on our final game in Tottenham versus AC Milan, a season-defining game perhaps for the Spurs. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. You can currently back Spurs at around even money. Well, exactly even money. 2.0. AC Milan are 4.2. The draw is 3.75 currently. Both teams to score, yes, is favoured in that market at 1.88 with no available at 1.94. The Asian handicap line sees Milan get half a goal start at 1.98, and the total is 2.5, shaded a bit towards the under. So maybe Miguel will get you to set up the game for us again and just the narrative going into this, because Spurs obviously decided essentially not to win the FA Cup given all their changes. And we talked about this in the Weekend Football podcast, and Adrian said that Sheffield United had to make 8 changes themselves. They then lose the Premier League game against Wolves. But basically what I'm getting at is they rested those players in the FA Cup for basically this game today, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And especially how much import Conte puts into it. Now, for the moment as well, Conte is supposed to be back for tomorrow's press conference before the game, which is probably a sign in itself. Everything is going into this. That's probably kind of almost kind of heightened by the fact this is a really open Champions League season. I really don't think there's anything close to an outstanding team that we've had in the last few years. Now, of course, sometimes it happens that emerges over the course of knockout stages, as we've seen with Real Madrid last season. But there's opportunity here. And as bad as Spurs' season has been, remember in 2018-19, they were often awful in the league and yet made it to the final. It's something we often forget about knockout football in that way, and everything, and the amount that can be poured into these games. And it does feel like that is very much the atmosphere around Spurs right now.
Yeah, it's one of the. And for a bet then for yourself, Miguel, are you leaning towards Tottenham both teams to score no as a bet here?
Sorry, I kind of built myself up to a point there. And
You're grand.
Yeah, I do think this is going to be one where, I mean, I said it in the first leg, or I had it the first leg to be fair, where I thought Spurs should be much better than Milan, and I still think that. But obviously Spurs have got so many issues going on. I think just the kind of the nature of this will mean that it's one of those all-in displays. I can see it being 2-0 to Tottenham maybe. So I'm going to go for Tottenham and both teams to score no.
Yeah, currently available on the match bench
as well.
Yeah, 3.4 is the current price there, so quite a big price. Adrian, over to you on this one, and you're kind of in broad agreement on the Tottenham angle here. I guess like you do look at that front 2 or 3 with Kulusevski, Son, Kane. They have the firepower there big time.
They do, yeah, and it's a big game for them, and yeah, I expect them to rise to the occasion. On winning to nil, I mean, the last 3 games in the Premier League, Spurs beat Chelsea, West Ham, and Manchester City all to nil, didn't they? So, you know, continuation of that isn't hard to, hard to envisage. And AC Milan aren't a great side, are they? Let's be honest. I don't think they're especially strong. Got beat, didn't they, at the weekend by Fiorentina. Wasn't a particularly brilliant performance from them. And I was looking at AC Milan's away record actually in Serie A this season, away to the top 12 clubs in that division. They've only played 6. They've won 1, they've drawn 1, and they've lost 4. So the harder road trips domestically, there's no track record to suggest they can go on the road and win on a consistent basis. And of course, they did lose earlier on this season 3-0 very comfortably at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. And you'd have to say Spurs are a marginally better team than Chelsea this season. So, yeah, I think there'll be some kind of bounce back. It's been an awful week for Tottenham, but I don't expect it to continue. And I think this is a good draw for them. I don't expect it to be a thrashing. I don't even guarantee that they go through. I think that it could be a narrow victory, a 1-goal margin, in which case we might go to extra time or even penalties. But I do think Tottenham on the nose for me at even money represents decent value.
Okay, yeah, maybe perhaps just to take it into extra time. And Mark, before we get into your selection, Spurs are available at around 34.0 currently in the Matchup Betting Exchange in the outright. Again, for people that want a fun one, perhaps to cheer on Spurs on Wednesday night.
Yeah, not for me anymore.
You've tipped them up enough this season, I think.
Yeah, no, I've abandoned them now. Classically, as soon as we do it, well, Bentancur gets injured, and for me, that sort of wipes their opportunity to go deep in this competition. But they've been a really difficult team to second guess recently. The home wins and then just no shows away from home. Absolutely awful in the first leg. Just diabolical. I know they had injuries and suspensions, but you assume they would rise to the occasion. An away knockout tie in the San Siro, just a wonderful place to go and play football. But they were so passive and lacking in direction and leadership. They looked really leggy. They looked unable to sort of change the flow of the game. The front men were starved of service as well. And I actually thought Sarr and Skip were actually pretty good in central midfield. But Højbjerg's back. His form's actually dropped off a little bit recently. But yeah, Milan were worthy winners of the first leg. I think Pioli was justifiably disappointed the margin of victory wasn't more. They had opportunities in the second half to increase the lead. They have improved, Milan, recently since they've changed system into a 3 at the back. That was before running into Fiorentina on Saturday. They were well beaten in that match. Fielded pretty much their best 11 for it. So yeah, both teams have kind of shown their flaws a little bit recently, but I have to agree with the lads. I think Tottenham evens just feels a little bit too big considering the circumstances. Chasing the tie at home, 3 big wins in the Premier League here, 2-0. Their top level is a gear higher than Milan's, and I just think, in percentage terms, we're saying Spurs have a 50% chance of winning this. Feels big. I think Spurs have got a stronger chance than that. So the other bet I was kind of looking at, and look, both teams have got or have had recent issues in front of goal and chance creation, but I couldn't get away from the goal line here. Over 2.25 goals is available at about 1.82. Now that means if there's exactly 2 goals, you get half of your stake back. If there's 3 or more, you get paid out. Across the last 3 Champions League campaigns, if we look specifically at second leg, last 16 ties, all bar 1 has featured at least 2 goals. So in all bar 1, you'll at least have got half your stake back. In 18 of those 24 matches, over 2.5 goals did bank. I was quite pro goals going into the first leg. I'm not going to just sort of dismiss it altogether. We know what Spurs are capable of in forward areas when it all clicks, particularly on a big European night. But Milan have got players of quality too. Wouldn't be too surprised if they contributed here and Spurs won, but I just thought the goal line was a little bit low considering where we are now in the campaign. It's a big tie, big match for both teams. Not expecting it to be a snooze fest like the first gig.
Okay, yeah. So fascinating selections for the guys. We're going to lock in Tottenham at even money. I think what the guys have said, they don't necessarily have to qualify here, but as Mark touched on, 50% chance. The guys think there's value there in that one. So that's all selections as I've touched on. Full recap is available on insights.matchbook.com. Do check that out. You'll also get Mark O'Haire's piece on a Thursday morning, every Thursday morning, and Adrian Clarke's Premier League Insights column on a Friday morning. We're going to go to my favorite section of the podcast, the long shot section, and it's going to be all correct scores this week. And incidentally, do check out the Matchup Betting Exchange, particularly that hour or two when liquidity is in the market on those correct scores. So where will we start? We'll go to you, Miguel. I think I was trying to resist the urge to start with you here, but this is the biggest price we've had in this section. But it is a sort of scoreline you can see, as you touched on when we covered the game. Bayern 2, PSG 3.
Well, we've had it before in the last few years. And it just has the feel of that sort of match. I mean, again, I said that going into the first leg, but at least there's evidence for this position. So yeah, I'm going for Bayern Munich 2, Paris Saint-Germain 3 in the 90 minutes, which is 30-1. It is a long shot.
Yeah. It is covered in the section, but look, currently that is in around 25-1 general price in the sports books. Matchbook is available at 30.0, so do check out the exchange if you're looking for a little small interest bet to cheer on loads of goals. Why not? Adrian, you touched on Spurs winning by 1 goal margin, but it's not a 1-0, it's a 2-1 you see as the potential the value in the market here currently.
Just following on, isn't it, really, from what the point that Mark was making about the goal line being a little bit too low, that he could see both teams scoring here. And so can I. I think that Spurs have to attack the game, and I'll be staggered if they don't find the back of the net. But can you really trust this Tottenham rearguard to keep yet another clean sheet on home turf? 3 in a row already in the Premier League. I don't know if they can keep a fourth. Looking at the record in the Champions League between them this season, Spurs have conceded in 5 of 7 Champions League games. Milan have scored in 5 of 7 Champions League games. So the odds would that record implies that they could both easily find a back of the net here. So yeah, I'm going for Tottenham 2, AC Milan 1, and it's 9.0, 8-1. So yeah, not bad. I can see it happening.
And if we do get that scoreline, what a fascinating extra time that will be in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Mark, as solid selections go at 7.8, this looks quite solid. I know you can get reeled in very easy with correct scores, but you can just see a Benfica 2, Scotty Parker's Club Bruges 0.
Do we have to keep mentioning his name?
We do.
Yeah. I expect Benfica to get the job done relatively comfortably. As I said earlier, I am always a little bit sort of negative towards backing teams who've already got an easy lead going into a second leg. But, the way in which Club Brugge are playing at the minute under Scott Parker doesn't leave you a huge amount of hope. And I just think, I watched Benfica on Friday night against Familia Cow. They're just a well-oiled machine, know what they're doing. The front players are playing very well together. The defence is pretty strong and solid. Got almost a perfect record in Lisbon already this campaign. So I think they'll be eager to sort of get the job done early doors and then move on to the next challenge as they try and win back their title domestically too. So yeah, it looks like a reasonable price for the most likely correct score and a home win.
Yeah, out to 8.0 now on Matchbook, Mark. So while we're checking out a lot of the sportsbooks, vast majority of them 6.5. You can see that little bit of juice at 2 o'clock. That is on the odds checker grid on Monday. Best bet time, Mark, will stick with you. Basically, it's essentially the safer option here for the best bets, but you really like Benfica and under 4.5 goals. You think it's as solid as it gets on this week's card?
Definitely, yeah. It's trading close to 1.8 now, which is very much appealing considering the range of correct scores we get on our side. I know the boys showed a bit more balls than I did earlier in the show to say Benfica to win and BTTS no, but I think just as a best bet, I've got the consolation goal on side here too. Benfica can win this 2-1 or 3-1 and we still get paid out. Benfica can win 4-0 and we still get paid out. And I think it's probably unlikely they score 5 or more, considering they've already got a 2-goal lead in this tie too. So if you're pro Benfica, I think this is a really nice way of getting them on side.
Miguel, Mark touched on you having a small bit more balls than he has, perhaps. Put up 2.5 Benfica, both teams to score no as your best bet.
Yeah, just going when we went above, I think it just seems so obvious. And 2.5 is such a nice price. I'm again surprised it's so high. So that kind of clinches it, I think. Benfica and both teams to score no.
Yeah, and Adrian, finally over to you. It was sort of a team steam in the overs angle for Bayern versus PSG. You can't get away from goals in this time.
No, I can't. I also like their 2 picks, I've got to say, but I don't want to be boring. Let's go for a different game. And yeah, I picked PSG plus 3/4 of a goal in that section, but really I think the stronger play is potentially the one that you chose for it, which is over 3.25 goals. Mbappe and Messi up top in good form, up against a slightly wobbly Bayern Munich defence at times against top level opposition. You can see them really taking the game to Bayern and making this a far more entertaining affair. Going the other way, Bayern Munich with all their quality, Coman, Musiala and co, Müller, you can absolutely see them scoring as well. I think this could be an absolute belter, much better than the first match at the Parc des Princes. So yeah, I could see, Miguel's shout is a good one, the 3-2 PSG or 2-1 or a 2-2er. I can see those kind of scorelines landing. So yeah, over 3.25 goals for me at, I think it's about even money, isn't it?
Yeah, 1.98 currently. If PSG do win 3-2, Miguel, that'll be it done. You can retire for the season after that. It won't get better than that. My thanks to Miguel. My thanks to Mark and my thanks to Adrian. Incidentally, if you are a football-only listener, do check out our Cheltenham content. Cheltenham is just 8 days away. The Matchbook YouTube channel, the best place to get it. Or that podcast feed. We recorded a great preview night. We have a handicap specials coming up, and then we day-by-day previews of Cheltenham week. It's going to be a brilliant week. Really looking forward to that as well. But the football does roll on, and we'll be back for the Premier League preview on Thursday, as well as the Champions League podcast the following Monday. Until then, enjoy the football this week. We'll chat to you Thursday. Bye bye.